I've been thinking recently about Galatians 1 verses 8 to 9, where Paul is writing to the Galatian church, and he tells them that he's astonished to hear that they're turning away from the grace of Christ to a different gospel. A gospel that he says is a distortion of the true gospel, the true message about Jesus. He tells them twice, if anyone gives you a different gospel, let them be cursed. I mean, that's pretty strong from Paul. What Paul's upset about is how there were some within the church who were claiming to be Christians, and yet what they were doing was marrying Christian faith with certain Jewish religious practices and trying to sort of bring them together and say, that's the real message about Jesus. That's the real gospel. They were saying that to be a Christian is to follow Jesus and do these other extra religious things. So that's why Paul gives one of the strongest condemnations we find from him in the Bible. He says, let them be cursed. Anathema is the word there in Greek. Let them be anathema, curse. Anathema to anyone, to anything that wants to marry Christian faith to something else. Jesus plus something else and present that as being the real message of Jesus. No way, Paul says. This is why I've really felt compelled to do this video after what I saw on January 6th. And to be specific, I'm talking about the mob of people on January 6th who invaded the Capitol building. What we saw there was another gospel. It was what they represented, what they claimed to represent, what the leaders of that mob who invaded the Capitol claimed to represent, was a faith that married Christianity, Christian faith in Jesus, plus conspiracy theories, plus some type of American civic pride and patriotism, and try to put that all together. And I think, like Paul, I want to say, no, that is another gospel. Let them be accursed to anyone or anything that wants to marry the true Christian faith to other things and present that as being the true faith. You know, last year, there were a number of legitimate, peaceful protests. And let's be glad that we live in a country where you can do legitimate, peaceful protest over anything, even. However, last year, we should also say that sometimes there were riots along with some of those peaceful protests. There were riots that led to looting and stealing and ransacking of buildings. And if it wasn't said clearly back then, let's clearly say it now. Again, that was wrong. It was bad. It was detrimental to what those peaceful protests were trying to be about. However, those riots last year were different from the riot in the Capitol building that happened recently. You see, the riots from last year were not being done in the name of Jesus. The people who were ransacking Targets and Walmarts, trying to steal TVs and electronic equipment and clothes and all these other things, they didn't stop to pray on the floor of the Target and Walmart before they went to steal all those things. Here locally, the people who invaded Scottsdale Fashion Square did not do so in the name of Jesus. They did so in the name of trying to steal iPhones and designer clothes. On January 6th, however, the people who invaded the Capitol building, shouting their intention to kidnap congressmen and congresswomen to string them up, as they said, they did so claiming to do so in the name of Jesus. They did so. They invaded the Capitol building and ransacked through that building carrying crosses and Bibles in one hand, and on the other hand carrying American flags and guns and nooses. You see, that was another gospel. And to act like that is the gospel, to even let anyone claim that to be the gospel, is something that can never happen on our watch for those of us who care about the real and true gospel of Jesus. See, it's one thing if I'm dealing with a movement or with people who are very clearly claiming to not be Christian, to not be Christian-led, okay? It's another thing to deal with a group of people who are saying, oh yes, we're Christian, who are praying in the name of the Jesus I believe in, and yet are doing distinctly anti-Jesus things. Listen, the real Jesus, the real gospel of Jesus is about the grace and mercy of God that's available to us from God through Jesus. The real gospel of Jesus forms us to be a community of people that are compassionate and that are gracious and that are forgiving. So, no all day long to anyone, to anything that wants to take Jesus, my Jesus, and take out the grace and mercy that is part of Jesus and instead fill it in with rioting and violence and misplaced patriotism. No way. Instead, yes, yes, yes to the real Jesus, to his real message. And I just encourage all of us to stand for that more than ever before, to represent that more than ever before. Maybe this is a moment where we can speak up in a way that can be heard, because these are things people are talking about right now. Let's just say this blending, this other gospel that's being presented as a gospel of Jesus and patriotism and trying to blend those together, this Christian nationalism, if we could put it that way, it's not going away. But fortunately, those of us who care about the Jesus I believe in, and I think many of us believe in, the real Jesus and his real gospel, we're not going away either. And I think the real Jesus, the risen Jesus, he's not going away either. He's still alive and present, and I don't think he's happy with how his message and his name is being represented, which means I like our chances in this. I like our chances because for thousands of years, the real gospel of Jesus and the grace and mercy and forgiveness that's available from God through him, that has lasted for thousands of years. With his help, let's be sure to make sure that real message is heard and believed in for many more years to come.